Yesterday was the first time I have used PartsWork in a very long time, and here is why I almost never use it. But before I dive into that, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you thought about this video and what you would like to hear me share next. So when it comes to PartsWork, it is something that I very rarely use because when you address the drivers that cause a part of someone to want to do something, when you address those drivers appropriately so that emotions can be processed and that misperceptions can be corrected or false beliefs be corrected, you rarely ever need parts work. Parts work is something that is typically reserved for secondary gain. Secondary gain is when there's some hidden benefit to someone doing whatever it is that they're doing that is not tied to emotion. It's very important. It's not tied to emotion. And I want to go so far as to say what people would call a negative or unpleasant. I prefer the word unpleasant emotion. I've done thousands of hours of sessions in root cause work. And the process that I learned is 5-path. And in that process, which was created by Cal Banyan, who was all but dissertation of his PhD, when he left psychotherapy to become a hypnotist because he saw much faster results, lasting results. He was able to really help people instead of just continually ripping the band-aid off of what it was that they were dealing with. In that setting, whenever he would do parts mediation with people in the environment where he did therapy, that was for secondary gain. So he took that and he applied it to hypnosis. Now, when someone comes to me and they're dealing with an issue, we look to uncover when they're experiencing that, what are they thinking and what are they feeling? And if it's a limiting belief, if it's a negative belief, if it's a negative emotion, we shouldn't be having negative feelings and emotions around things that shouldn't be causing negative feelings and emotions. We shouldn't be going to work and encountering a situation where we feel like we're not good enough. We're all created good enough, but when we have the belief or the feeling that we're not good enough, then we think there's something inherently wrong with us or not acceptable with us deep within the subconscious. So when you connect with these feelings and you use emotional resonance to go back and unplant the seed of that belief or that feeling, when you have completely done that work and you have taken care of the other emotions that naturally tend to follow that, whether they're mild or they're deep, it doesn't matter, to get insight around whether or not the situation was fair, was there something I wish I'd received that I didn't receive in terms of love, affection, advice, encouragement, being forewarned, like a parent not telling you you're going to get a shot. That was an actual client once. She was afraid of speaking on stage, and she very vividly remembered being in line at the health department. I'm 54. And 11 years ago, she was in her 60s. So just kind of give you a time frame. She was a kid. Her mother had her in her arms in line at the health department waiting to get her vaccinations. She was seeing these kids come out of this room crying. They're crying. They're crying. When she goes in with her mom secures her, and they didn't forewarn her. She just got 2 shots in rapid succession. And in that moment, she thought she was going to die. Okay? That belief, the pain anchored it in when we did the forgiveness work. It wasn't about really being angry. I was like, hey, why couldn't you tell me? This has impacted my whole life. Why couldn't you have just told me? And we get resolution and insight around that to let that go. The same thing with shame, guilt. When we take care of those things, you rarely ever needs parts work. Parts work can most commonly come up with people who have had chronic illness or chronic pain. And that's for a lot of different reasons, and not the point of this video, but secondary gain can come up for a lot of reasons. The other reason the secondary gain can come up is because maybe our entire lives we have placed importance upon some activity to the extent that our mind has literally never considered another possibility. There's a part of the mind that believes that this is just the way you do things. So, for example, someone who is a people pleaser, like my client that I'm using as an example, long time history of people pleasing, decades of people pleasing, always saying no to themselves to give in and say yes to everyone else. This is just deeply ingrained habit. We've done a lot of work. In 10 weeks, we accomplished more than over a decade of therapy in terms of what was going on. But this, I don't know, this bewilderment around why can't I put myself first? Why can't I let myself go enjoy, a nice hot soak in the tub? Why do I just keep finding things to do? Well, the first thing I have to do is make sure she's not still distracting away from some unpleasant feeling or belief. So guide her into hypnosis and we evaluate the situation, and she is not distracting away. It's like, well, this is what I do to feel content. Now that I dug into that because content is the opposite of something unpleasant. But at every angle I attempted to poke a hole in it, it was just, this is what I do to be successful, to achieve. This is how it's done. She can rest when I get there. When we get there, she can rest. But at the same time, this same part of her did not want to have burnout. I was like, can you not see that that is the path to burnout? And so there was a subconscious insight in that moment. So what we did between the two parts, we negotiated going back and forth. And in the midst of the negotiation back and forth of, this is what I want, this is what content feels like, I will actually be more successful if I'm rested, if I'm loving myself, if I'm taking care of myself. I'll get where we're going faster, more effectively. And the other part was like, oh, you mean there's a better way to do this? We can get there faster? Both parts were so excited that we brought that together. We made an agreement and we wrapped up the session. We had a follow-up chat, and she's already doing the things that for whatever reason she had managed to just push off, and a part of her was like, well, I don't have time. I have to do this thing. I have to do that thing. I have to do this. I have to do that. And that agreement is already paying off. So parts work is most effective and gets longest lasting results when you've done all the other emotional insight work first. And that's the reason that this is probably the 4th time I've done parts work in 11 years of being a hypnotist. Hope this answered your question. Any other questions? Drop them below.